Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I want to state up front at the start of this video, this video is not intended to be medical advice. I'm not trying to be your medical doctor. Anything related to hormones or anything like that, you should probably talk to your own medical doctor about. And I'm not going to endorse any form of illegal activity. And I would say to those who are watching Greg Doucette's video, which I came across, laws are different in his country from yours. Don't break the law. And I'm going to agree with his stance of telling people, look, don't break the law. Follow the law. And don't use drugs outside of the care of your doctor. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 hat of speechcraft, and let's talk about this. Now, up front, I want to state, I stumbled across this video because I went over to check his channel because I did a video the other day covering his cycle for his show. And I wanted to see what he was doing with his post-cycle because he made a video on it. And interestingly enough, he mentioned me in there. And I felt like I should address that briefly before I go on. And I was amused by some of the comments below of his followers and stuff like, oh, just ignore Jason, he'll go away. Guys, I have 74 million views, 110,000 subscribers. I have a rep at YouTube at this point. I'm not going away. That's just reality. Deal with it. So, that being said, this is also not ever going to be a gear channel. I'm not on gear these days. I don't use gear these days. I'm in my 40s, not even on TRT anymore. But I still discuss the topics as they come up, as they're relevant to the community. And Greg's videos are current. They're relevant to the community. People are talking about it. So I want to give my own commentary on it. Now, I'm actually going to agree with some points he made in there. And I'm going to say it was actually decently done video. I felt like he presented some really good information, some good knowledge of stuff that I've more or less said in the past, and I agree with a lot of it. I think he's going to find we agree on those points. Now, the one thing that I am going to bring up is that he mentioned me only briefly. Doucette got my name wrong. Doucette, whatever his name is, got my name wrong, and that's okay. It shouldn't be that complicated, man. It's 2 syllables. Blah, ha. I know you don't speak Czech, but that's okay. It's not complicated, man. It's 2 syllables, brother. You're an intelligent guy. You can figure it out. But he didn't like the fact that I said that I thought his cycle was a lot of stuff. And you know what? Let's come down to the point. It's all about perspective, isn't it? It's about perspective. I'm not saying I don't have friends who use more than that. I'm not saying I don't have friends in powerlifting who are lifting a hell of a lot less than you would expect for guys blasting gear who use more than that. Because I know guys who do. I've got friends who are using upwards of 2 grams a week of combining Testosterone and Anadrol, and they still can't bench shit at a meet. Okay, I like them, they're good guys and everything, but, I mean, realistically, they can't do it. And that's just the reality of it, right? And we actually know now that I'll research it later, Greg has benched a hell of a lot of weight in comp. He's a legitimate bench presser, right? There's no doubt about that. And I would say, you know, I know guys who blast considerably more than him who can't touch what he does on the bench press. But let's come back over to the point. Just because a bunch of people use more doesn't mean it's not a lot. And I think what we need the context here is the point I make to people when it comes to the whole physique world, competitive bodybuilding, stuff like that. That's rather the point. It's like what he stated there only highlights the points that I make, that they're in a world to where excessive abuse is the norm. Right? Excessive abuse is the norm, and actual excessive abuse could be considered mild. And that very much falls in line with what my normal points are, and that's fine. He's not used to my stance. He doesn't know where I'm coming from. He doesn't grasp that that is what I'm saying. That what he would consider mild, and just because he is beating guys competitively who use twice what he does, which is probably the case. I don't think that's an unreasonable assumption, and I think he would agree with that. Just because there are guys who are using twice what he does, who he is beating, doesn't mean what he's using isn't excessive. It's the fact that abuse has become so extreme in his world that only mild levels of abuse aren't really a big deal now. They're like, well, that's nothing. That's nothing. What do you mean that's a lot? And that's the point, because to everyone else, that is a lot. And that was very much the point I was making. Yes, I understand that Primobolan and Masteron are very, very mild compounds. I understand that we're not comparing that to something like Tren. But the point is, that's still a lot of gear. That's a hell of a lot of gear. 1.2 grams is a lot. I don't care what your stack is. It's a lot. Is it the same as if a guy was doing a bunch of tren? Of course not. Not even in the ballpark. Doesn't mean it's not a lot. And just because we all have friends and bros who do twice or triple that amount doesn't mean you're not abusing. And that's a fair statement. So you need perspective there. Because that was the point that he made. Well, I know physique guys who use more than that. I know just gym bros who use more than that. Well, yeah, we all do. We all do. Doesn't mean that what you're using is insignificant amount. Or else you would stay on it. And let's come back around to the point, because he's off now, right? He's kind of his post-cycle at this point, but not really, because he's still tapering down to this stuff. Is titrating down at this point. If it wasn't abuse amounts that concerned you about your health, you would still be on it. You would stay on it indefinitely. But you don't, because you know you can't. It's not healthy. Because Greg doesn't want to die. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I mean, none of us want to die. The reason I don't use gear these days, I don't want to die. So, the points that he made, though, was that you do see a lot of guys mess up in two regards. And I really just want to cover those 2 points because I think it's valid points. I'm going to actually agree with Greg. I'm going to say, you know what, you're right. I've said similar things. I said the same thing with Brandon Harding's video, right? We had Brandon Harding who did this excessive, crazy amount of gear for his stack, for his show, and then he's only a couple weeks out from the show and he's already talking about, oh, I'm not going to need PCT. I had my blood work done. And let's get over to the point. Greg is right. When you're dealing with these elimination half-lives, what you need to understand is that these half-lives are for multiple injections. And so what ends up happening, it can take any given injection of something like testosterone or testosterone up to like 5 or 6 weeks to even taper off. Okay? And that's for super physiological amounts. Well, 2 weeks after you came off, you still have the doses in your system from the shots 4 weeks ago. You're not just dealing with your most recent shot 2 weeks ago, right? You're not just dealing with that. You still have amounts that are in the normal range from shots you took 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. Those are now tapering down to the normal range. You still have testosterone in your system from those things 4 weeks and 5 weeks ago. What do you think the one from 2 weeks ago is doing? Most of these guys who were on, given amount, and maybe their testosterone levels are at 2,000 nanograms per deciliter, 2 weeks after they come off of it, they're still sitting there at the levels that a 16-year-old has. That's still what's in their system. Actually, probably double that. You go to 3 weeks later, now they're probably at the levels a 16-year-old had. And as he said, he's 4 weeks off, so now he's still at the range to where he would be a normal, healthy adult male, probably, the levels that he had. In fact, he would probably be in the normal range. I agree with that. I'm going to agree with that point. Right? 4 weeks after your last shot of a super physiological amount of Test-D, yeah, your hormone levels are going to be very high. You're going to be at a robust amount of testosterone still. So, what does that tell you about these ass clowns who run around all over forums and say, oh, I'm going to start my PCT 2 weeks after I came off? Or they'll get blood work and they honestly think their blood work is indicative of really what's going on in their system. No, not at all. You're still on, brother. And they will also pull that card of, I'm going to start my PCT now, or I'm going to decide if I need it. Or these same clowns, they'll say, oh yeah, because it's tapering down, I've got to use this twice a week to keep my levels stable. It's like your levels are stable. With the amount some of these guys are using, they have super physiological amounts even if they only did it every 2 weeks, okay? They could come off for 2 weeks and they would still be triple the normal hormone range of an 18-year-old male. So this whole concept with these long esters of these guys talking about, oh, I've got to do this all the time to keep my levels stable. Your levels are stable, guys. All right, your levels are stable. You're super physiological. And he raises a good point with that, and he's right. And it's, again, stuff I've said. You've seen a lot of coaches out there have said this stuff. A lot of knowledgeable people have said this many times over the years. In fact, a lot of guys I know who are very successful coaches and lifters even do short esters like twice a week. And they say, look, if you go do the blood work, you'll notice it's just fine. You stay perfectly stable. That's a controversial statement, but it's based on reality. It just doesn't go with the whole bro lore of what goes on in the crazy online gear world. All these guys think, oh, these short chain stuff, I better use it every single day. Get away with it twice a week. Levels will stay just fine. Just fine. based upon what you're using. So he's got a good point there regarding guys starting their PCT early and then thinking that they're getting something out of it. The reality is they aren't. You're not crashed till 5 or 6 weeks after you come off completely. So he's right on that. And I'm not even saying that you guys need to be doing PCT. I'm going to say a lot of you guys, I don't know that you, if you're going to go that crazy with the stuff, I don't know that ever coming completely off is the wisest choice. That's a source of contention. The other thing he said in there that, again, I'm going to agree with is that, yeah, you should be trying to build muscle all the time. You should always maintain tension on your muscles. This is something I told a lot of guys when this has come up, when they say you can't come off and keep your muscle. You're going to lose all your gains when you come off of stuff. Because look at the Junkie Wards and other people who say that, right? Jerry Ward says that same stuff as he loses all his gains. But Jerry Ward also trains like a pussy. And Greg raised a valid point. If you are training hard, you are training heavy, you are maintaining tension, you are maintaining weight on the bar, you are trying to keep your strength and your lifts up, and you built a base before you went on, you're going to keep a hell of a lot more of your gains, right? That's reality. It's the guys who come off completely and let their training slip when they cycle off. They don't focus on, hey man, I've been repping 315 on the bench. I better keep at least 315 on the bar. The guys who aren't in that mentality, those are the guys who lose everything. It's guys who just want to come in and play and do some fluff and pump instead of focusing on what do I need to do to maintain my strength? What do I need to do to maintain my gains? What do I need to do to maintain my muscle in the gym? That mentality is the correct mentality. That is how you keep most of your gains. That is how you do it. And if you don't keep that mentality, you're going to be all those guys who say, man, once you come off all this stuff, you lose everything. Because I've told that to a lot of guys in the past. I'm like, look, you guys can stay big after you come off the gear, right? You guys can come off completely. You can finally say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go full natty. And you can keep a lot more than you think you can. You guys can maintain size above your natural limits in many cases for quite a long period of time, for years. And that's based upon research. We know that you can do that. So it's not the end of the world for the guys who've cashed in their natty card. They choose to go on and then they say, hey, I want to come off. I don't want to do this anymore, but I'm going to lose everything. Well, that's not necessarily true. That's not true at all. A lot of it's going to come down to how it is that you choose to train, and that's one of the most important factors. And I'll agree, Greg more or less has said what I've been telling people for years on that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.